Adam has just done the right brain. Now it's the chance to focus on the left brain as we explore the best ways of understanding the contributions of audio in a wider marketing mix. I'm Tim Burrowes and I write the industry newsletter UNMADE, which you'll find at unmade.media. Now, before we get into the conversation around that mix, we've got a bit of a scene setter, which comes from Paul Sinkinson, who's Managing Director of Analytic Partners, whose specialty is the ROI of marketing. So Paul's been with Analytic Partners for more than 8 years, and before that he was Managing Partner at Anero's data science arm, and also at Anero's market research consultancy, The Leading Edge, before that. And he's also worked at Nielsen back in the day. So Paul, to sort of set the scene for us, over to you.
Thanks. Well, I guess the first thing is to kind of introduce you to Analytic Partners, let you know if I've got any credibility to speak to you today. So we're an independent global business based out of the US. Our focus is marketing measurement and optimization. So, think econometrics, market mix models, the ROI. That's what we've been focused on since we started the business in 2000. I say we're independent in that we're not owned by anybody. We don't sell tech. We don't sell media, so there's no kind of vested interest in there. This is all that we do. Over that period, we've had a 95% client retention rate, which is hopefully the first proof point that gives you a little bit of confidence in what I'm going to take you through. And the other is the external validation that we've got. So, somebody going around effectively marking everybody's report card, saying how well marketers are doing at marketing. It'd be a little bit dodgy if we didn't want to be assessed ourselves. So we lean into that with Forrester, who do the largest evaluation of people in the space, what they call the marketing measurement optimization wave. Called us a global leader in that since 2016. We get called out by the ANA, Gartner, the various EFI wins that we do with clients. But if that's all maybe case studies, the one I'm more proud of is the ICOM Hackathon, which is where you're at a conference, 4 of you people get locked away in a dark little room with no internet access, have to be given a data set, run models on it, stand on stage 24 hours later, present your findings. So it's kind of the ultimate walk-the-walk moment that goes along with it. So hopefully all of that gives you a little bit of confidence in what I'm going to talk to you today. Now, because we've been doing this for so long, we've seen a lot of studies, right? So we've got hundreds and hundreds of billions of marketing within our database that we've looked at across multiple countries, across multiple categories, and we're able to start figuring out some generalizable learnings. And some of that stuff lets us be able to deal with strategic questions, one of which I got asked, which was, why does radio often get a hard time in market mix models or econometric models? So we took a look at it, and I think there's a few things that were interesting. One of which you can see on screen, which is that brand messaging tends to outperform performance messaging. Now, I know a lot of people go, oh, well, what's performance messaging? Think of it as like price or product-based messaging versus brand messaging. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we see that outperformance. It was a little bit confronting for me at the start. My background was kind of trade marketing. I thought brand was a little bit kumbaya, sitting around on beanbags holding hands. But it does outperform everything. Partly it's because we're so overinvested in price messaging. Before we even get to advertising, think about how much gets spent on price discounting, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars. So if you think about everything being on a yield curve, way past that point of diminishing returns, brand messaging, a lot less invested in it. So it's on that steep part of the yield curve. It works pretty well. The other part, rather than just people love, like brand messaging, is you can be really efficient with it, right? Because you can keep it going for a long time. It's not relying on that price point still being the price that you sell it for. It's not relying on that limited time product still being available in market. So it gives you a lot of efficiency that's sitting there. Now, what do we see for a lot of radio ads though? Less brand advertising than in other channels and a lot more performance messaging. So if the very message that you're putting on the network is something that only performs better than the brand message 20% of the time, you're up against it at the start, right? Just because of that selection of the message. And the other one, I kind of hinted on it, is that brand message can hang around for a long time, is consistency. Consistency is the unheralded superhero of efficiency. Just do it for longer. Even if you're doing it the wrong thing, the longer that you keep doing that thing, the better it gets. You can see here, if you've got a campaign that runs for less than 10 weeks, if you can double that up and do it for, say, 20 weeks, 34% higher ROI. Same ad, same platform, same strategy. You can take it up to 30 weeks, 60% higher ROI. Same platform, once again. So consistency is really, really important. A lot of people worry about wear out. They're going to go, oh, look, will my campaign wear out? Don't. The thing that you need to worry about is wear in. Have you shown it enough to be able to get an improved performance? And we've tested wear out It's very, very, very rare because, as we know with a lot of radio campaigns that we see, it runs for 2 to 4 weeks, and that's it. You never get that benefit. It's not running long enough to get the outsized ROI that you'd want to see a great performance. The other big one that we have come through is synergy. So we know on average, as you add an extra media channel to a campaign, the ROI increases. A couple of reasons for it. One, you get a higher chance of incremental reach. If you're pouring all of your money into one channel, at some point you've reached everybody you're going to in that week and you're just driving frequency, which is a bad thing. So if you then start spending money on other channels, you've got a better chance of getting that incremental reach, which, let's be honest, with TV starting to decline in ratings, that's something that we want radio to be doing, right? Giving that incremental reach to the campaign. And the other part of it is synergy. And it's that creative synergy that's a big part of it, right? You want somebody to have seen an ad, have that as back of mind. They're driving to the store to make a purchase, and just before they get in there and get assaulted with all those price messages, they hear that ad. All of that, subconscious brand associations, category associations come to front of mind, and you've got somebody making a purchase on something other than the price, which gives you that bump. But what we see time and time again is a lack of that creative synergy. Sure, we see it between, say, TV and YouTube, right? Because you're using the same asset. You sometimes see it with out of home, because at least you're using the end frame of the TVC. But that radio ad and the rest of the advertising, particularly the visual advertising, there's not a hook there. It's almost entirely separate. I mean, McDonald's is a great example of it, right? That mnemonic, and everything comes flooding back just from that noise. But how many great audio assets are there out there? Very, very few. Which leads to that other part of the importance of creative. Now, we know on video that 2/3 of the potential ROI comes from the creative itself. So we spend all of this time debating and analysing, what duration, what network, what demographic, all these sorts of things. That drives 1/3 of it, where there's all of this science and all this analysis. The rest of it's driven by, I like that one. The 2/3 of the ROI is coming from it. Now, it gets even worse at some of those channels, because that brief comes to a creative, and it's this beautiful 60-second, maybe 30-second TVC that gets made. Out of home and radio is so often an afterthought. It's done after it rather than as part of that. So if we had that same focus in the creative, then you're going to see those higher ROIs. Now, normally I'd be able to say to you, hey, look, this is what the impact would be if you do those things. This is how much higher your ROI is going to be for your radio campaign. Unfortunately, we can't, because there's so few people doing it. I can't create the data points that haven't been there. But what we can do is get people to do it so that those data points will exist. And that's what we're actually going to be doing with CRA. We've got a group of clients together that we work with on a regular basis anyway, getting them to change the way that they execute their radio campaigns. And we're then going to measure those results to show to everybody that there's this unlocked potential in radio advertising. And by overcoming some of those hopefully simple barriers, we can get much greater results.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Now, this is a good moment for me to invite our other panellists, Nathan James and Lauren Joyce, to come and join us on stage. And as they're making their way in, let me tell you about them. Nathan is marketing manager for the gin and innovation portfolio at William Grant & Sons. Now, that includes Hendrick's, and Nathan's previous marketing roles have included Campo Coffee, KFC, McDonald's, and Johnson & Johnson. And Lauren is a Chief Strategy and Connections Officer at Australian Radio Network. Lauren's been with ARN for nearly 5 years now, and previously led strategy and marketing at Mamma Mia, after coming into media via the agency world of Ensemble, Total Advertising, and the legendary Bellamy Hayden. Welcome everybody onto the panel, and I think we'll dig into a couple of the points that Paula made first of all. Paul, you almost answered, or you came quite close to answering one of the kind of obvious questions to me, which was, does this potential effectiveness of brand versus performance create a buying opportunity? But I suppose the question I was asking myself, and I think you answered it already when you said that there isn't that much data, but I found myself wondering, if suddenly everyone's doing brand, does that then cancel itself out? You know, is this an opportunity to jump on now, do you think, or not at all?
I think it's an opportunity to jump on now. I don't want to sound cynical, but I think with the short-term focus of most marketers, it's probably pretty safe that we won't find too much brand advertising, that the opportunity disappears. I would love for that to be a thing, but there's just such chronic underinvestment, I don't see it happening.
Well, Lauren, let's widen it to you. Why? Why is this?
I think that there's a real impatience amongst marketers for results, and I think that has come about with greater pressure on businesses to drive ROI. So, you know, the industry has almost done it to itself in the emergence of digital media and its inherent measurability, and there's a real addiction across brands and marketers to be able to demonstrate those results really quickly. So I think this level of impatience around seeing those results means that marketers aren't investing in brand for a longer term benefit. And if you think back to, 20, 30 years ago and the types of longer term brand marketing that brands did, I think of brands from when I was a kid, like I can still recite the Pizza Hut phone number, and I can't even tell you my husband's phone number because of the way it was written into the jingle. And I think that's the type of, we talk about building emotion in brand, but actually it's the resonance that is important for the long-term benefit. And I think that you don't see that overnight, and there's an impatience to see those results.
Nathan, we're kind of sitting here implying that all marketers are very short-term and they're not really interested in long-term brand building. Are we? Is that unfair?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a bit of a fish out of water, really, with these comments. I mean, I represent a suite of portfolio premium brands, and certainly I think our mantra and the mantra for all marketers must be, sales overnight, because you live and die by your sales, but brand over time. And I think you need to have your mix adjusted in the right way consistently to build both. And I think marketers change roles, and they're too quick to make sort of decisions and change the model, whereas a bit more consistency, I think, would be a benefit. Also, I think you need buy-in from the C-suite for brand building. I mean, it is a wait and see game. It won't happen overnight, but you need buy-in from the top. But if you have the mix right and you're doing the brand over time, sales overnight, so you're addressing both, I think that's the critical element.
And sticking with you, Nathan, when it comes to understanding that mix, getting what you need to make the right decisions, what do you want from your agency partners or with your media partners?
Well, I mean, we have a ratio, and again, I represent premium brands. So ours is 70% brand and 30% sort of promotional price-driven work, that's why it surprised me, some of the data that you put up. But again, that's just my experience, and I'm a brand marketer too, so you'd probably expect me to say that. I think, a level of understanding from the media company about what needs to be achieved in the short term and the long term, I think, is really important. So, we do have a budget to get every year, and that we don't shy away from that, but we also need to ensure that our brand health metrics continue to grow. So in my case, luxury brand, brand that's a good quality, I'm proud to give as a gift, say, for example. So an eye on those metrics, I think, is really important, as well as the budget as well from a media perspective.
I think it's about being super clear about the role of the channel as well. Like, a channel can do everything, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So if you're really clear that the role of radio is to drive brand, for example, then that can influence the type of creative that you put into it, and therefore the way you're measuring the success and outcome of that channel. I think too often we're trying to force each channel that we put onto the plan to do all of the jobs, and as a combination they should be, not necessarily as individual channels.
And when you sit media owner side, how well placed are you to actually influence that conversation and the strategic decision? Or by the time that brief flows down to you, is that moment already gone?
I would say that over the last kind of 2 years, we're having more conversations with marketers, and that allows you to have more of the influence. And if you are having a conversation earlier with the likes of Analytics Partners or their research partners, as well as the brands direct, then you can influence the role of the channel and have the opportunity to demonstrate what the channel can do for the media mix. I think we've also, in a session later today, you'll hear about this, we've also become more aware of the role of the channel in amplifying other channels, so how different combinations of channels can work together. So, I don't know, for a large majority of the briefs, I'd say you haven't got a huge amount of influence by the time it gets to the salesperson for them to put a proposal back together on what is going to be the best solution. The role's already been defined, and it's really an executional kind of proposal you're giving back. But the stronger the relationship you can build earlier on, then the better the solution can be that you can give back to the client.
Well, Paul, Lauren's just alluded to some of the work that Analytics Partners are doing. Do you want to maybe just talk about what you're thinking about with audio at the moment?
Definitely. I mean, we know reach is going down, right? Reach is getting hard to get. It's increasingly hard to get quality and speed of that reach at the same time. So where we see it is it's adding into it. I know, the word omni-channel and omni-media has been thrown around for years, and we're all tired of it, but still I don't see it really being done. That, we kind of think, oh, look, I'm doing a brand building team campaign, so I need video, rather than going, okay, cool, how do we support it across everything? I think that comes back to the creative idea as well, right? Like, it's still expressed within a medium, or it's still expressed this way, or this is the best way we could do that for audio, rather than going, for a visual campaign, rather than this is the best way we could do it for the entire campaign, which sometimes means a slightly worse TV ad, but a better campaign across everything, because you're getting that creative synergy across all of the channels and being able to have it play through. The idea of being able to throw out a Sunday evening ad on 7 and 9 where you're hitting, everybody watching the movie at home, that's gone. So you need to be hitting it across multiple channels to be able to get it. And I think, then to your point, it's how do you flex that and how do you support those different campaigns with different channels? And that's where I think radio still comes in with the reach. That's where out of home comes in with the reach. Doing that heavy lifting broadcast job that we used to do purely with TV. And I think that, we always thought of, like our big broadcast medium, invest a lot of time in it, get great at the creative for it. We need to start doing that with out of home and with radio as well, right? It used to be the way that you advertised. The very first TV ad was a radio ad, Bonneville Watches, right? We need to go back to that skill set to be able to do it and drive the great campaign success through that reach.
Lauren, does that potentially imply that for the audio industry, the way it sells or has conversations either with agencies or clients potentially changes to become far more about audio as part of a wider mix rather than purely the powers of the medium itself?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, my personal opinion of what the future of audio is going to look like is that I see your spots and dots advertising on a similar trajectory to which digital display has taken. And it will continue to play a performance role, a high reach, high volume role, and then you've got your premium layer of integrated, talent-aligned, branded content that is going to do the heavy lifting around the emotional engagement and lending those, more positive emotional scores to the brands that advertise within it. Yes, so I think that does change. I mean, largely from a media publisher's point of view, you adapt to how the market is, how your client is buying. And certainly within the last 12 months, we've seen agencies build a lot more capability around audio buying and understand the nature of all audio and the various different channels and how they fit together and can build an incremental audience and incremental impact, as opposed to thinking about radio as old media, buying it in one silo, and then digital audio and buying it in another. And I think that's a positive thing to Paul's point about creating content or advertising that sits across all of those channels, because you need to think of it like a suite. I mean, you might have the same core concept, the same underlying music bed or audio cues, but it is going to have to be adapted to the environment, the audio environment that it lives in, whether that be a music stream radio or a podcast. So yes, absolutely, media owners have to adapt the way that they connect with their clients.
I think there's one point around that as well, which is getting away from the fear of a low ROI, which I think everybody still immediately sees like a low ROI for radio and gets defensive or freaks out. And I understand it to an extent, but at the same time, like TV's never had the highest ROI. The thing with the most investment has never had the highest ROI. The thing with the highest ROI is underinvested. You don't want the highest ROI because it means you're getting less dollars. A client doesn't want the highest ROI because it means they're not driving as much total dollar profit as they can. I think audio overall, and particularly like broadcast radio, should have a low ROI, like out of home, like TV, because it's where there's a huge amount of investment and it's where you're driving. It's the thing doing that heavy lifting for you. That's the foundation of your campaign. So, your other low spend activity can leverage off it, have a high ROI, but not be driving anywhere near the scale of business that those foundations are.
I can't not ask the question, which medium has got the highest ROI?
The one with the lowest investment. We're still kind of seeing a lot of the social channels, the emerging social, come out with it, but they're small. If you put all of your money in it, what would happen? The ROIs would collapse straight away because the yield curves are very small in relation to something that can do the heavy lifting like audio.
Cinema generally performs pretty well in a market mix model for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've talked about a bit about experimentation. Now, Nathan, you ran an audio campaign for Hendrick's via eardrum, so let's have a little listen to that one. I might need you to...
Thank you. So why the cucumber? It's really quite simple.
The cucumber cues the refreshment of a post-sauna ocean dip. It cues the taste of a linen suit in a bar of boys. It cues the fragrance of cut grass under manicured toes. Sir, to cue the cumber is to cue the summer.
Right.
For a refreshingly curious way to cue the first drink of summer, cue a Hendrick's gin. Oh, and always drink the unusual responsibly.
So Nathan, as I say, that was from eardrum, and it does seem strange being an audio conference and Ralph van Dijk not being here, but as my Facebook page is full of photos of him enjoying Times Square at the moment, we know exactly where he is, which is New York, or he certainly was 24 hours ago. Nathan, what did you learn by doing that campaign?
Well, it was a very successful campaign from our perspective, but the reason why we did the campaign is we really wanted to own an occasion and a time of day. And that occasion was the 5 p.m. first drink of the evening. So really that 3 to 6 p.m. time slot was something that we really wanted to own, and naturally audio is a great channel to kind of do that. The second piece is, the reason why we chose audio was that there's lots of white space, frankly, for a premium brand in audio. I'm in the alcohol category, and certainly there are not a lot of alcohol brands advertising in audio. And as a challenger brand, when share of voice is really important to us, I'm never going to outshout the competition in terms of dollars. So we started to look at sort of periphery channels that we could own in conjunction with the other channels to supplement the campaign. Thirdly, as I don't know how many of you know Hendrick's, but we really felt like we had the brand that could live in audio. It's a very personality-driven brand with a strong tone of voice and a point of view. So we really felt like that if this was done in a premium way, we could really deliver the brand world and refreshment, which is another category barrier within the channel. But of course, we didn't have any creative available to us globally to use in this space because, as I said, premium brands don't really use audio. So we're really committed to investing in the right creative and really match the creative with the out-of-home and made as impactful as we could. And the importance of investing in the right creative, ensuring the DBAs are there is critical, and it was really successful. We had our biggest festive sales period in 2 years. Brand health metrics are looking strong in the way of luxury, quality, so there's been no denigration in those. And that campaign has been exported globally to other William Grant markets across the world. So it can be done, and I guess this is a prime example of that.
Lauren, let me ask you to sort of react to that and maybe sort of reflect on the role of challenger brands versus kind of marketplace number one brands in that sort of experiment?
I think that, audio, because of the speed at which you can get to air, also allows you to experiment a lot and update your creative quickly, react to, real-time events and whatnot. I think the mix of challenger brands versus kind of mainstream brands I would say that you've got more kind of mainstream brands playing in radio because they're doing the heavy lifting job, that they're using radio for that really high volume reach driving activity. But then when the challenger brands come in, they, have so much fun with it, and they're the ones that really take advantage of the integration opportunities, the various formats that you can use, and thinking about how you extend the listening experience into real life. I think that they're much more creative because they're open to thinking about, well, how is this audience going to respond to, the content that I'm putting out there? There's certainly an opportunity for, I think, all brands to take on the advice that Paul's talked about and being more consistent and thinking about the importance of an audio logo. So even if you are just starting out, think about, well, how do I develop some distinct assets that can surface in any channel that uses audio? So that might be, radio, podcasts or whatnot, but then also screens and how that audio sonic kind of, or logo, I should say, carries across those channels, because that over time is what is going to make each of those channels work a lot harder. And that's where I think you could get to the point where your retail or performance messaging is doing a brand job for you. And I would argue that McDonald's, they may have a price and a price and product based ad, but it's actually doing a brand job for them every time it's on air because they've done such a good job of being consistent about their audio logo over time.
Paul, in the minute or so we have left, takeaways for anyone who's trying to think, okay, where do I start? Because not everybody can afford, not everybody have the budgets to do big studies. How do you start by learning something?
It's literally just experiments. So, making sure you're designing things which can be done, very, very cheap, to be able to go out, try it and see what the results come out in a controlled experiment. I think it's being bold, it's stretching things out and trying things that are different, not doing the same thing that everybody else is doing or the same thing every time. It's being idea and strategy led still, right, rather than doing it from a media executional perspective. So thinking, what is it that we want to do and how can we then do this with an audio rather than, hey, we're going to do audio, how do we do this? I think that's the play, and then get into it for the long game. I think that there's so much demand on marketers to deliver results in the short term because marketers aren't showing that they can do results in the long term, which means that then they have to deliver now. I think that the measurement's available from everybody to be able to do it. If you're thinking that by driving awareness you're helping the business, it's a joke. That's somewhere in the middle. Understand what something is and then stick with that measure, because if your consideration 70%, somebody else is 50, who cares? It's about that pattern, right? You should be getting things better as time goes on. So just stick with a measure, stay with it consistently, pick a campaign and stick with it consistently. I did one of these panels with Les, and he said, look, I'd prefer a bad ad showed lots rather than a great ad showed once. So even if you think the creative stinks, stay with it for 30 weeks and get that 60% higher ROI.
I'm a bit depressed that our final thought for this panel is exactly that one. Now, I'll be staying on stage to moderate our next panel as well. But for now, please thank our panel, Paul, Nathan and Lauren.